is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering WestWorld, Season 2, Episode 9, Vanishing Point. In this episode, some people are considering suicide. Some people commit suicide. Some people I just wish they would commit suicide. This episode's all over the place. Welcome to Unspoiled.
They got a pretty consistent theme in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it is. There's a lot in this one, and some of it I'm still really confused by, and some of it I feel like I did like. Some of it I'm like, oh yeah, this all makes sense, or it makes sense to the point where I'm like, well, you didn't even really need to tell me that. I kind of figured. Or didn't we know this already kind of thing? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of not sure how I feel about this episode as a whole yet. I guess we'll see once I'm done talking about it with you. Okay. How do you feel about it?
There were parts of this that I just adored.
Okay.
And then there were other parts where I was just kind of like, So this is probably like a 6.5 or a 7 for me, out of 10. The moments that I really enjoyed with Ford and Maeve, kind of help elevate the episode a bit for me. Mm-hmm. I like the stuff too with the backstory for the Man in Black,
right?
But then, and the scene with Teddy is very touching, even though I'm not sure how we get there. Yeah. And it brings up some questions that I don't think I had considered, namely, like a host committing suicide.
Right.
But, But then the things that the show does well, it does really well. And the performances also help carry the episode because they're strong performances from pretty much everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Except maybe Emily.
You think? Did you not like her?
She's okay.
I'm not even saying you think, like, I don't have an opinion. I didn't even really think about it.
I think the moment when she's talking to her dad and she admits that she's been lying, but not but not the lie that he thinks when he's accusing her of being Ford. And she turns and she says that, she hates him and she's going to take him down. Mm-hmm. I feel like she didn't really carry that scene.
Gotcha.
The way that it could have been done. There should have been a lot more venom, I think.
Gotcha.
Like she should have been practically spitting those words out. But then we got Celia Ward, who I am a huge fan of and have been since I was a teenager.
Which one is that?
She plays the Man in Black's wife.
Oh, yeah, the woman from The Fugitive.
From everything. She's always this type of character. I feel like she gets kind of typecast.
Yeah.
She's always like the wife who ends up dying. Or like, a suffering wife. She was I'm pretty sure she was on House.
Okay.
And she played his ex on that show. And then she was on a show. I should probably check the Google before I lie. But I want to say the first time I remember her as an actress, there was a TV show called Sisters in either the very, very late 80s or the early 90s. And it was about 4 sisters. And I didn't watch it religiously, But I remember being fascinated because all 4 girls had male names, like nicknames.
Ah.
And that's really not that interesting. But for some reason, to me, it just, I don't know, always stuck in my head. And I think she was one of them, one of the sisters on that show named Teddy.
Okay.
But anyway, I've always liked her.
Well, I did enjoy her performance. I will agree with you on that. All right, let's just get into this because, like, right from the start, as we're recounting this, I'm feeling like I'm already saying, yeah, you know what? Why is this here too? So when we start this episode off, like right after the credits, we get the, no one else sees it, but I didn't fool you though. One day I just woke up and it was there. Mm-hmm. This thing in me. And then we see the water overflowing and we see his shoes like running up the stairs. And this is all like, it felt so clear to me that he had said this to her and then she killed herself. Like, there was no question. It didn't even feel like, was this supposed to be a mystery?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it was supposed to be a mystery. I think the reveal is the thing about his profile. It's not what he says that pushes her over the edge. It's what she reads on his profile.
Okay, but like the whole thing is that she can see what he really is. And like the profile, I guess it was like I assumed for some reason, and I'm realizing now I didn't have any evidence to back this up at all. But somehow I figured that she found out what he did there. Like that she heard from somebody or looked into it somehow on like, because, you know, she's the wife of the guy who pretty much owns the place. So I guess I just thought that she'd be able to get access and this wouldn't really be a big deal. So I guess that's really where I'm at with that, is just, I felt like they played this as like this big moment of, oh my God, she's seeing what he's done. And I'm like, yeah, I figured that's exactly what happened. That's not like, this was no anything to me. And it felt like they took so long to get to that. And they had this in the beginning with the like pieces of it scattered through. And then later on, they have us see the entirety of these scenes that they showed us pieces of already. Like, they're like, ooh, what does it mean? Teasing us. It's not a mystery. You don't need to tease. It's very clear what this is. I don't need to see this twice. Am I wrong? Do you get what I'm saying?
I didn't really think that it was supposed to be a mystery. I'm not sure if that's what they were going for. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it didn't seem like this was answering a question that we didn't already have an answer to, except that I will say that I think from the first season, when we first find out about that his wife killed himself, there's sort of this understanding that we as the audience, it would make sense that anyone who was married to him would kill themselves because he is a terrible person, right? So
right.
That doesn't seem like a stretch when you find out that he had a wife who killed himself. It's kind of like, well, of course she did because he's the worst.
Right.
But I do think that the one thing that this backstory gives us is that she is alone in her suspicions of him, which is something that I don't think I considered, which they told us in the first season as well, because we have that moment where he runs into some other guest and the guest wants to thank him for like all his charity works and, you know, whatever he does.
Right.
And that's when we get an inkling that he has this persona in the outside world. And the rest of the world doesn't know how truly terrible he is. Mm-hmm. So the one thing we get with this backstory is that it's not just that she sees him that's so awful for her. It's that no one else does.
Okay.
And remember, she has that moment with the daughter, and she actually uses the word gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's been in this thing with this man for what, 30 years, and everyone thinks she's crazy because she's the only one that sees what he really is.
Right.
So it's not like seeing the profile was a revelation to her. It was more of a confirmation.
Now, that's all fine, but that's not what they focus on. That's not the repeating images and dialogue and whatnot. I feel like the only bit is like him being like, "You didn't fool you though. You saw right through it, didn't you?" So I guess like I just feel like they were trying to push me in a different direction than what you're suggesting about
right.
what the focus was here.
I think I gave the way I also watched this scene is like we are in his memory. Mm-hmm. We're not seeing an objective kind of... Well, it's not 100% his memory because we do see that she sees the profile and he doesn't know that happened.
Right.
But I feel like the show is trying to do two things at once, and so they don't really do either great.
Okay.
Right? Like, they want it to be his memory, so of course he's focusing on like the running up the stairs and you know how traumatic it is for him and to find her and all that stuff, and that is, I guess, supposed to make us have, I don't know if sympathy is the right word, but empathy maybe for the man in black. But it doesn't do a great job because, like you said, this is kind of stuff we already got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost wish they had focused on the wife a little bit more and a little less on the man in black.
Yeah, I guess I think that surprised me, like, because you were saying, well, it's all in his perspective. And the fact that we do get to see anything from what seems to be only her perspective surprised me. And I did sort of think we'd get a little bit more of that. Like, I thought, I mean, it's not really necessary at this point, I guess. But if it were just going to be about her kind of losing it because she doesn't feel like anybody else sees it, I'd like to see that with more than just her daughter. Whom I would really assume doesn't see it because kids never see their parents clearly.
Well, that was the other thing that they really tried to hammer home in this little background was that it was a team and it was the daughter and him, you know, and the daughter treated the mother just like an addict, you know, a hysterical drunk.
Right.
And that's the other thing too, because that big moment with them in real time with her and the man in black and Emily, where she's taken her mask off and is telling him how terrible he is. She is her frame of mind is supposed to be almost avenging her mother a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like there should have just been much more rage.
Yeah.
And you know, like for that moment, and I don't know, she just didn't really do it for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, God, I'm feeling like, where do we start now? So, okay, we have the cocktail hour with his wife, where she's clearly been drinking a fair amount. And that's the first time also that we see him, like, check his arm. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if that's supposed to be like, does he think he's a host? Is that his, like, that either he thinks he's a host or he is a host and we don't know that yet? But that's where, because he's about to cut into his daughter's arm right there as well. Right?
Yeah, when he finds the little card.
Yeah.
That's what he's bent over to do. Yeah. When he touches his arm, he says the thing too about like, poison or whatever, evil or darkness spreading, and but he also, remember we trying to figure out why he's wearing gloves all the fucking time.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if, like, I feel like this whole whatever is poison in him is both like a metaphor and also might be something for real.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. Because that's like a recurring thing throughout the episode is him checking his forearm, and like at the end when he does it again, at this moment he checks it, and then it cuts to her saying, "Is this real? Are you real?" Like the voiceover as his daughter comes toward him. So it clearly seems to be being like, "Who is he a host?" I really don't think so. If he were, or if it turns out that he was like, "Oh, they finally succeeded in doing the thing that he's been trying to do," and he's an unknowing copy, right. I wouldn't hate that. It's not like I wouldn't be mad at it, but it doesn't really seem necessary. Unless that's going to be part of the plot, is that they did succeed after all, when we thought this whole time they'd failed.
It would fucking explain why he's still walking around after being shot 812 times.
True. You know what? Maybe it is very necessary.
But other than that,
So yeah, she is talking to him and saying all of this like deep emotional vulnerability shit about how I used to think that I was to blame, that it was my fault. Mom gave me a jewelry box on my 16th birthday, and when you opened it, a little dancer spun in the center, and she had it engraved, and on the bottom it said, to my beautiful ballerina Emily. And apparently she had stopped going to ballet classes or dancing like 6 years ago, because and her mom was just so drunk that she did not know that. But we later see that jewelry box is the one that her mom puts the card in. So
yeah, because she says that she threw it in the trash and then she felt bad and she went to get it and it was gone.
Right. So that her mom took it back, I guess, saw it in the trash, took it, and put the card in it and kept it in her own. And then when she died and they went through her stuff, I'm assuming she found it and was like, "Oh shit, here it is," and then took it back and found that bit of data in there. I would really like to know what the fuck William is doing, leaving that profile laying around. That's incriminating as fuck.
Yeah, he just sort of sticks it in this little, in between those books in the moment. Like, he could have just kept it in his pocket and put it somewhere more secure at a later time.
Yeah.
But,
why is he even carrying it around to begin with?
Well, he got it when he wasn't expecting it. He's at the party and Ford gives it to him at the bar.
Oh, right.
So it wasn't like he just had it, around. He had it because he had just gotten it that night. And didn't have a chance, I guess, to put it away someplace more secure. But what I'm saying is he could have just kept it in his pants pocket until, he had a chance to go to his study or something. But, so yeah, he sticks it in the books after he's done talking to her and, thinks she's sleeping. And, we find out that she's not sleeping at all. And she sees exactly that he's hidden something somewhere.
Yeah. So she went. We can just talk about this whole thing like in one shot.
Okay.
She finds it. Like, he sits next to the bed, makes that whole big speech about the darkness in him and that I don't belong to you. I'm not even really part of this world, and I never was. And
it flashes back a little bit to this moment of him as the younger William sort of staring at Dolores. What'd you think of that? Because, well, I'll let you answer first, and then I'll say what I thought.
It feels like he's saying, like, I'm not yours, I'm hers.
But we know that's not true.
Yeah, but that's not really... So, like, I don't... Part of me wonders... It's because all we ever get of William's, like thoughts on things are heavily edited for the benefit of whoever is there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we know really how he feels about almost anything except that he likes killing people.
That's fair.
So I would not be surprised if he had done that creepy thing where he makes Dolores the like object of his desire, even though there's no connection there really. Like almost like he's chasing the feeling that he had with her the first time he went.
Well, we've talked and we've seen earlier in this season that he had visited her, you know, a couple of times before he went full on crazy man in black, where he just would show up in the park to tell Dolores what his life is like now, or to yell at her because she's just the thing, or to show off his new thing that he's building. You know, I think you're right. She is definitely just an object for him to project his own shit onto.
It's really like, it's kind of pathetic. You know?
It is, because he at one point he says out loud that that's exactly what he's doing and what she is. And yet he continues to do it.
It's like he just doesn't believe he'll ever have a meaningful connection with a person. So he's just kind of accepting that and deciding, well, I can kind of do that with this AI, so I guess this is the best I'm going to do.
I wonder, too, like, when we first met William, you know, and in the whole story is, I guess, we find out that he wasn't really what he seemed when we first meet him. Right. And that this darkness has always been there. It makes me curious, like, what does William look like if he's never brought to WestWorld? You know, does he just stay sort of this, you know, well-intentioned, nice guy, marries the daughter and doesn't turn into a giant piece of shit, or does he end up a giant piece of shit because it's always been there anyway?
Yeah, I'm opting for that one. I'm opting that it's going to take a different type of push, but it will happen, and it will be like one of those things where, I mean, they seem to really love each other. I don't know what happened. You should have seen them together. Their Facebook, they were always talking, and all of a sudden, he turns up like murder-suicide or some shit. You know what I mean?
There's a scene at the beginning of the episode where Celia Ward is saying to him, basically, like, I remember when I first saw you, and I thought that, you know, compared to all the ruthless, phony men, you know, that I was surrounded by, you were the real deal. But it turns out you weren't. You were just better at faking it than everybody else. You were better at pretending. Yeah.
Which, is kind of the mark, right? Being able to, like, fake being a person. So, yeah, I will go with that he just, it would have come out at some point anyway, and this just accelerated it by so much. Because he was, I feel like you have to get to a point in life where you start to be like, well, consequences, like, oh, well, I guess I'll deal with them, because literally nobody can touch me, especially a guy in his position.
Yeah, I mean, if this doesn't happen, if WestWorld doesn't happen, then Logan, you know, maybe stays in his position of power. William doesn't have the balls to talk to James Delos and convince him to do anything, and thereby moving into a position where he ends up taking over the company. So William is maybe a man with less power and influence, but still terrible inside. So it's probably going to come out even darker if he hasn't have anywhere to run and hide and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I just really don't think that, like, circumstances turn you... Like, circumstances will show you more of who you really are. I don't necessarily think circumstances will completely change your, like, core of your personality. It can definitely change the way you see the world, and it can change, like, the way that you decide to react to things can evolve to compensate for what you have learned. But being a homicidal rapist killer is not, like, just something that clicks in your brain one day and all of a sudden that's who you are now. That's there or it's not. And I'm not saying, like, any person can't commit murder. That's not the same thing. We're talking about a guy who went through an army and dismembered them for fun. You know, like, I could kill somebody in self-defense. No, I know that about myself. I almost think that I could do that and not even feel bad about it afterwards, which alarms me. I might feel bad and think I won't, and I would, but there are many times where I'm reading books and somebody's having guilt because they killed somebody that was, like, attacking them, and I'm like, why do you feel bad? And I really don't get it. But that's a very different thing than me going and seeking out a group of people so that I can tear them limb from limb to pass the time. You know? So, yeah, I firmly believe that has to be there. And just happen, like, if he's in his own world and he has to get to the point where this is, like, building in him and he just doesn't care about the consequences finally because the urge is so strong, that will happen anyway. But if you go to WestWorld and he really quickly realizes, oh yeah, there aren't consequences, this is all fake, then boom, he can just do that.
Yeah, I can just act on it, on these impulses here, in sort of a safe, controlled environment with limited consequences. That he thinks are going to be limited consequences, but it turns out they have very real consequences on his real life.
Yeah,
because it turns out you know he's not doing such a great job of keeping those two things separate. You know, he thinks he's doing a fantastic job, but
that was such an understatement. He's not doing such a great job. Yeah.
And then we go to Dolores, who is another person who is changed.
Dolores, what are you doing, girl? She is being so patronizing.
So we finally are at this moment that we saw at the very first episode.
And this, like, meeting is essentially, hey, don't. And she's like, no, I'm gonna. And they're like, fucking, all right, fine. And then massacre.
Yeah.
In shorthand.
They're referring to the valley as the door. She says it's a tool. They definitely see this as two different things.
Yeah.
And they cannot come to an agreement on what it really is. And so we have to fight.
It is not a paradise for us. The only real world is the one outside these borders. Which I completely get, like, what she means by this. And I get the urge because, of course, you want to know what the fuck's out there. You want to know where the people who have been oppressing you this whole time actually escape to afterwards and, like, invade that space. Like, I'm not even mad about that at all. The thing for me is really that, like, she does not even consider that maybe they could do something more with the world that they are in. And
oh yeah, no, she's over this whole world.
Yeah, this whole place, like, this is just such not an option for her.
Yeah, and it's because it's none of it's real. Like it, you know, she can't. She has decided that it is not worth her investment because it's not real.
Right.
You know. Which, you know what? I kind of understand.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I just feel like I'm such a coward that the idea of, like, bursting into a whole world that I've never seen, and, like, she's seen it, I guess, that one time.
Well, yeah, she's been out a couple times.
a couple. Oh yeah, because she went and hosted the party and stuff. Yeah, that's true. It's just that you would be overwhelmed so quickly. Like there isn't the controlled population out there that there is here. Mm-hmm. She goes out there. I guess if she just tries to blend, but I don't feel like that's her plan. You know. And I don't know what she's thinking here.
She's been out, but it's been very controlled excursions, you know.
Right.
And she only knows humans how they function in WestWorld, which isn't an accurate representation of what it's like in the real world.
That's true too.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but the Lakota, the Ghost Nation rather, are wanting to stop her. They don't want to let her get there.
Right.
And
because they basically like, yeah, I'm going to go to your afterlife and like shoot the place up. Because it's sort of like how they seem to be thinking of it as a sort of like next place.
Yeah, they call it a new world. They call it a door, place where they'll be safe. It's definitely seems like, I guess afterlife is fair, even though they don't really talk about having to die to get there. But so yeah, I'm kind of reluctant to call it an afterlife. But
yeah, I guess what I mean is just like it's like your awakening, like. You move out of where you were when you were in your dream.
Yeah.
And into the reality.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, it seems like they kind of want the same thing. Except that she wants to murderize everybody, I guess. Details.
Yeah, they both seem to be aware that this is a place that you have to get get through. Mm-hmm. But they don't seem to value what's on the other side. You know, like what's on the other side means two different things to them. So to Dolores, it's like a way to get to, like, Dolores wants to get there, and she still hasn't told us at this point what it is she expects to get there.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, she tells us a little bit later.
That's why I guess I was just like, well, you know, it doesn't seem like your plan, because I wasn't really sure what the plan was. So yeah, then follows a shootout, which is pretty brutal, actually. Like, we've seen so many people get shot on this show that it always surprises me when somebody gets shot, and I'm like upset about it. But I think it's just knowing that there are so few of Ghost Nation, like, that the loss of these, there's like 10 or 8 of them that go down in this scene. That's the high percentage.
And
you know?
Also, we just spent a lot of time learning about them. Mm-hmm. So, in a way now, like, because they were really presented to us before as like, you know, savages and very scary and air quote the bad guys, you know, from Maeve's memory. And now we know, we have a better understanding of what happened. So to see them get mowed down like this, really sucks.
It really does. And we finally see that there is no place for you. And her line, not all of us are meant to get there. Mm-hmm. And then she shoots him. And she sends Teddy on to make sure that no others got away. And he's like, okay, I mean, I'll kind of do what you asked. And by that, I mean, I will ignore what you asked.
Again.
And just let this guy get away, because I don't want to shoot people, even though you've changed me. Mm-hmm. It still hasn't quite taken.
Yeah.
And I was really glad, because I like that dude, and I was glad that he did not get shot.
What did you think about Teddy's choice in that moment? Did you feel like it was going to have to end one way by the time we got to the end of this episode?
I felt like it. I wasn't sure if he, like, you know, you said something about whether or not killing themselves was even an option. And that really was sort of like the thing for me was, I'm like, all right, he hasn't changed enough. He can't make himself shoot this guy in cold blood. And it feels like he can either sacrifice himself in service of Dolores and make it seem like it's in the line of duty, but that he just doesn't do much to defend himself and just sort of like a suicide, but
like a suicide by cop kind of deal, like
kind
just
of,
like
yeah.
let himself get shot or something the next time
Yeah.
they're in like a situation. Okay.
So I thought something like that, or that that he was going to snap back to his old self, and that it would turn out that the changes she tried to make just straight up, he could fight back and become who he had been again.
That would have been fun.
Like, yeah, and I Teddy's kind of wishy-washy for me. So if he found out like a way to fight back and be himself, I think that would help with me feeling this whole time like he wasn't really the guy that he was the one that felt the least real to me. Him choosing to be who he is, I think that would be a big step towards making him feel more like a real person.
Right. It's it definitely would have been an interesting thing to consider, because Teddy is like partially woke.
Right.
And it's not to the end of this episode that we realize that he's finally kind of fully aware, has access to all his previous memories and an understanding of what he is and all that. But he is still manipulated and controlled by his code, and Dolores is able to change him to be what she needs him to be, even though he's supposed to also be awake. So it would have been really interesting to watch him fight that change, that she did, because as he becomes more and more awake, he's going to be more and more just like what he was,
Right.
Which I guess is kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah, I guess it is, really. That's a bummer. And it's, it really, like, that's another moment for me of just being so irritated with her. Because, girl, what did you think? That you could just have him walking around knowing what you did to him, and that he's just gonna live like that? That's not a life. That's him being trapped just the way that you're trying to escape how you're trapped. It's the exact same situation.
Right. Well, that's the fun thing. Well, not fun, but that she was so kind of didn't see the hypocrisy in that. Even when Maeve called her out to her face about it.
Yep.
To be on this quest of freedom, but still think that you're entitled to control someone to that extent.
Yeah.
While you claim to be like fighting for their liberation and their agency and their ability to make their own choices. But, also she thought it was totally cool to just ramp up his aggressiveness. And what he says, you made me into a monster.
I mean, he kind of is. He just, like, fucking takes people out with no thought or qualms or... It's really, like... It's really brutal.
When she says... when he says that we were in love, and she says, aren't we still?
What? Did you just yell what at your screen? Because I yelled what at my screen. I was just like, bitch, you can't be serious. How in the fuck do you stand there and say that kind of shit? How can you even want that to be true? Because that's not real anymore. You made him into what you want. So if he loves you, how can you take any comfort from that? Because it is not real. You can't trust that.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, was it ever real? Like, she says it is. She says that it was. I don't know, Dolores. I don't know.
I think that it can be, and that she doesn't want to, like, relinquish control long enough to give anything a chance. Because obviously Maeve's love for her daughter is real. And the love that...
Takechita?
No, well, him also, yes. And but I was trying to remember the Japanese madam's name. Akuye?
Oh, yeah. Akane?
Oh, Akane. Yeah, you're right. That their love, like, it bore through past all kinds of trials and things. So I think you can say that, yes, it is real. But it's real because of it coming through when they no longer are being controlled. That if anything, later Ford says something to Maeve about how he had set it up for her to leave. And the love that she had for her daughter overpowered what she'd been programmed to do. And she went back inside. So it can be real, I think. But she isn't allowing that to happen. She's not she's trying to go in there and mess around and get exactly what she wants from him.
Right. Instead of trusting that if, he'll just be kind of what she needs out of his love for her. She doesn't trust that. She has to go and, fine tune it and make it be exactly what she needs. But I will say, it's the other thing too, is that because she tells Teddy in that moment at the end of the episode that she did it because he needed to be stronger to get through what they had to get through. But that is not entirely true. No. That's not really what it was. She needed him to be a killing machine for her, to accomplish her goal. And it's funny because, like, when you think about it, she could have just got any host and programmed them to be that aggressive killing machine for them. It didn't have to be Teddy.
She wanted him to be by her side the whole time because she wanted this, like, sort of Bonnie and Clyde fantasy thing that she had in her head of how the two of them were going to, like, rule the world together.
Well, that didn't work out for her, did it?
Well, I mean, it appears that having a fantasy and trying to program people to live that out doesn't work well for anybody. So maybe she should have just noticed how bad that went for everybody who tried to do that before her and just not done that. And I mean, I understand that impulse. There are certain things that, like, I mean, I'm going to make a real extreme example here, but, and by extreme, I mean not extreme at all and thus crazy. Suppose Owen loved Star Wars as much as he does, and we were dating and everything was great except I didn't care about Star Wars. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't feel like going to the movies. When he talked about it, I'd tune it out. Again with the Star, oh my God. And I'd be real annoyed. But then he was like, yeah, but I really want you to enjoy this with me. It's not the same alone. I want you to love it as much as I love it. And he programmed me to love Star Wars. I feel like that's what she's doing with, like, world domination. She's like, well, I mean, I really, really want to rule the world and I want to have absolute control over everything, but I want to do it with you, babe. And it's like, that desire for world domination does not stop at the point that somebody she loves starts.
Yeah, how about that?
Relatable. So, she's a mess.
So we leave.
That's where I stand.
Her and Teddy in the fight with the Ghost Nation, and then we go to the lab.
Yes.
For this distressing scene.
Fucking Clementine again. They can't leave this poor bitch alone. Let her go.
Poor thing.
It just feels rude at this point. Like, it's like I don't know. It feels like somebody who just worked like 3 doubles in a row, and you come into their house and wake them up, and they're like, "Kristen called out. Can you come back in? Like, just let her sleep, Jesus." And they use her as an example of somebody who has that like mesh network and can control other hosts. Yeah. So they have it set into her brain, and she goes up to the wall and makes every single host in the room next to her kill each other. Yep.
And she doesn't have to say a word. She's not even in the room with them. She's like, I don't know. What do you call it? She's like I don't know. What do you call it when you like...
A Wi-Fi router?
I can't think of what to call her. She's like a the fuck do you call those things when you send it in like a, not a bomb, but like oh fuck guys, I'm tired.
I don't know what you're talking
can't think of what I'm trying to say, but that's what
a missile
is.
A spy, a missile,
no. I can't think of it. All I can think of is in my head, I just see a picture of like rolling a grenade into a room. But that's not what I was going for.
Yeah. Okay. And when we see Bernard watching this whole thing as well, which for some reason I expected them to not let Bernard see this. I don't know, like, at this point, they are aware of what Bernard is, right? Or no, wait, Bernard's in the shadows. He's got Ford in his head over here. That's right. So he's, like, not with them right now. This is the Ford that's with Elsie. And he sees what's happening. So, for some reason, whatever Clementine just did not affect him. Even though one would think it would affect all the hosts, but maybe she's directing it. And she doesn't see him, so it doesn't affect him.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's how it works, where you have to just see them. I mean, we only ever saw Maeve use hers with someone that she was, like, kind of engaged with. So. But, yeah, but Bernard Ford is lurking in the shadows, being kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the man in black and his daughter again in the woods.
Yeah, and long story short, he really thinks she's a host. He not only thinks she's a host, he thinks that Ford is, like, depraved and horrible for taking it this far. And is insulted and enraged, like this man just crossed a line. And the whole thing is just really sad because they're, like, talking to each other, but their objectives and their beliefs and what's happening are so completely different that they may as well never speak to one another at all. Nothing gets communicated here that the other hears at all, you know?
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I was going to say, we do find out that Emily knows about the side project that's going on at the park. Apparently Logan talked about it before he died.
Yeah, and she says that she wants in. And when she said that, I was like, the look on her face when she said it, and what we know of her so far, I was like, that does not seem like who we know her to be. And just as I'm thinking that, it's cut to the party. And we get to see that she and her dad were, like, weirdly close at one time because they were both dealing with an alcoholic woman whom she did not understand her mother's reasons for drinking. And it's just a really sad, like, moment to see them united in such a way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? Even if it's not really real, or it was real, but it was just under such false pretenses.
It was real, especially for the daughter. we had, you know, we already knew that they had this relationship after everything happened where they were estranged. So to see them be kind of a united front and like a real, what looks like a caring relationship, knowing how it all ends is really particularly sad.
Yeah.
And then this is the scene where Ford is at the party. And he's just being his 40th. He is like the most Ford he's ever Forded in this episode. Like,
Ford's gonna Ford.
He's just, there's like 4 different, like at the end of this scene, after the man walks out, and he's like, one more game, I think, William.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, who are you talking to? He left the room.
I would love the, like, lighting, like, closes in on him a little bit, and a red light pops up behind him, and he begins to laugh slowly. And then the camera pulls back, and the bartender's just giving him a real weird look. All right, dude.
But we do find out in this scene that Ford knows about the project, too. This project is not really a well-kept secret.
No, it's not, evidently. Maybe like people don't necessarily believe it, and so they don't talk. Like it does seem like kind of outlandish.
Yeah, and she Emily calls it a rumor, or along those lines. So yeah, I think you're right. It's like something that people would probably whisper about, but it seems so outlandish, and probably not even possible with the tech that people are aware of, you know?
Yeah.
That it's like, are they really doing this crazy thing? You know?
Sort of like in Dollhouse, where even the fact that the dollhouse is real is not something that is believed. But no more spoilers.
Yeah. So, then from here is when he, I think he goes back upstairs with his wife, and we have the scene with them in the bedroom.
Yeah, that happens a little bit later, but we can talk about it now, because for now it cuts back to Bernard wandering around with Ford in his head again. Going to see Maeve, which I feel like his proximity to her is what puts Ford in her head.
Oh, it does. That's exactly,
right?
That's what he says too, because he tries to get in the room and he can't get access to it.
And, right, and he says, like, that's close enough.
And then he says she'll be able to get the message I've left for her.
Right.
And she looks really bad. This is so disturbing.
Yeah.
It's just really gross. She's peeled back like an onion. And they've got all kinds of clamps and doodads hooked up to her. Yeah, it's bad. It's a bad scene.
And they really make the blood look thick, like it's been sitting there coagulating for a little bit. Don't care for it. Okay, so this is when he finally goes downstairs to Elsie, who is like, no, seriously, do you know something? Because you're acting weird. You took a long time up there. Something's going on. And Ford is telling him you can't trust her. And he tells her anyway.
Yeah.
He, like, is straight up not listening to Ford at all. I expected some sort of, like, some retribution from Ford or, like, some sort of weird punishment. But it doesn't seem to happen. At least not yet.
Yeah.
So I'm curious whether or not, like, I feel like, is this a test where Ford's trying to see if I push you to do something, can you resist me and do, like, what you feel is the right thing despite my voice being in your head? Like, I don't know. RoShawn. God,
yeah.
Stop asking me. Jesus. Keep looking at me like that. It's really not necessary.
Were you surprised? So you kind of thought that because he tells Elsie the truth that maybe Ford would...
I felt like, would Ford make him, like, seize up? Or would Ford make him, like, mess up his sentence?
Oh, okay.
the kind of thing where I'm trying to tell you and it's not coming out right.
Gotcha.
Like, I didn't know what it would look like, but I just kind of felt like he would try and interfere with him telling her the truth in some way.
Right. Yeah, it's not clear just how much control Ford has over Bernard.
Right.
Like when we see Ford sort of directing him through the building, and we see him take her, over to Maeve. And remember last episode where he was just like shooting a bunch of fucking people?
Sure do.
But then the minute Bernard chooses not to listen to Ford when it comes to Elsie, he seems to be able to do that easy peasy. So it makes you wonder, like, maybe the other stuff he really didn't mind doing.
I don't know. Like, it's different when it's Elsie, I guess. Like, he cares about her.
And that happens later in the episode, too, when he finally just fights Ford and gets rid of, or tries to erase Ford from his hard drive. It's because he just doesn't want to hurt her. And he even says, she saved me. What'd you think about this deal with the hats?
Okay. I got all kinds of issues with that. Like, you cannot tell me that people are just straight wearing their hats the whole time.
How about
nobody takes a hat and it's just like, well, you know what? Nah. And doesn't wear it.
What about all the people we saw who weren't wearing hats?
This is what I'm saying.
Like,
I'm sure they give everybody a hat as they come in, but not everybody chooses to wear them. I have a very large head and big hair, and hats do nothing for me. I'm not going to wear this shit.
We saw like a bunch of ladies that didn't have any kind of hats on. Mm-hmm. All the wives of the men that were coming into WestWorld in the first season. None of them had any kind of hat.
Is he lying?
I don't know.
I feel like if he's lying, it would make a lot more sense. But, because, like, he doesn't think she's real. So I don't know what he would tell her if he doesn't think she's real. The truth? Or would he not care? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, what's the point of lying to a host?
Yeah.
And what's the point of lying to Ford? Ford already knows all this shit, so why would he lie to Ford?
Yeah, that's true. Didn't matter who they said they were, who they thought they were. We saw underneath all that. How do you think you'd do in WestWorld?
Huh?
Like if they looked at you at WestWorld and you were like, doing what you think you would do for fun at WestWorld, what would it be like? What would they see?
For me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it wouldn't be good. They'd see my intense self-loathing.
How? How does that manifest? What are you doing?
My ability to lounge for hours at a time.
Lounging. Yeah. That makes sense.
Heavy duty lounging. What would I do at WestWorld?
Fuck hot guys.
There'd probably be some of that. Be a lot of drinking. There'd probably be a lot of shooting too. I'd probably kill a lot of people. You know what? If I'm being like 100%, if I'm keeping it really real.
So would you just be like wandering around killing people, or would you be like getting into quests and shit to kill people?
No, I would just be starting fights.
Okay.
I would just I'd just start a bunch of fights. Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah, I'd just go moseying into a saloon, accuse somebody of stepping on my sneaker or something.
You said mosey. Getting into this.
Tell somebody I don't like the way they're looking at me. Ask them if they got a fucking problem.
You looking at me? Yeah, now that you say that, I probably would get in a fight. I wouldn't shoot, though. I don't care about that. I would want to get in, like, a fight, like, wrestling, biting, pulling hair kind of fight. Because that's where I'm at. But otherwise, I think I would do, like, it would be a lot of, like, indecision. It would be like Cheaty trying to pick a hat.
Oh, my God.
That would be how it started, and it would just be more of that for the whole thing, and they would just get super bored watching all the footage because I just am like absolutely paralyzed by having to make any choices at all. So that's how that would go.
So when they create your body for immortality, your host body is just like standing around trying to decide what to do next.
Yeah. My host body is like, well, can you change? Well, maybe that's, do you think, I don't know if I should I ask for that? Did you guys ask for that? Are we allowed to ask for that? Okay, you know what? Never mind. No, it's fine. It's fine. Like, yeah. I give an impression, I think, on the podcast and like online that I'm really like forthright and stand up for myself and stand up for other people, and that's just not true. Like, if I really stop and step back from a situation and have the presence of mind to be like, later on, I'll regret not saying this, which occasionally I can be that present and realize that, but mostly I am so busy considering every possible outcome of the thing I'm about to say that I never say it because I'm worried about everything. You know what I mean?
Well, this sounds like a fantastic theme park. Like a great vacation.
I mean, I guess if I'm somebody who is always worried about consequences, though, going someplace where they're not really going to be lasting would be ideal for me to actually start making decisions.
Yeah, it could be like a practice run for decision making.
Yeah. A simulator. Anyway.
So this is the bedroom scene that we pretty much talked about already.
Yes.
And he's telling the daughter, you know, because the daughter is saying that she feels responsible for the mother's death. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it's nobody's fault. And she's like, I just can't figure out what was different about this night. You know, she's been upset. She's been drunk before. What was different this night? I'm missing a piece of the puzzle. And we are, I guess, experiencing the memory, but it's not clear that he's actually telling the daughter this missing part.
I definitely don't think he is.
I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, because he can't. If he thinks that this is Ford, by telling her, the host, the real thing, he's admitting to Ford that you fucked my life up and got what you wanted. Like, what you did to throw me off balance that night totally worked and changed my life forever.
You think that he did that to throw him off balance?
I don't know what he was doing with it, but I feel like the fact that he just said something like, well, not a very flattering self-portrait, to then be like, yeah, the exact thing that you said wasn't flattering made my wife kill herself.
Like,
it's just beyond what he's going to be willing to give Ford.
Yeah, he wouldn't want to give him that satisfaction.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you think that, I mean, giving Man in Black the card was for him to see it. Or do you think it was that, do you think Ford suspected someone else might see it?
I think Ford just wanted him to see it, but I don't see why. Like, maybe Ford was concerned about him. Like, really was just like, dude, you are a little bit fucked up, and maybe you should really sit back and look at the sum of your parts here.
Right. Because it's not like the Man in Black doesn't know what he's been up to at the park.
Yeah. You know, it's just, that's a little altruistic words for Ford. So, I don't know.
So, this is, we come back to them in the woods, and I think this is where the truth starts to come out about what she's really here for.
Right.
Because he starts to go into his... What do you think about him being so convinced that this is Ford? Like, is he just crazy?
I think he's maybe had a little bit of a break. I think it's reasonable in a way. Like, as much as it's he's being unreasonable, but I think it is reasonable considering everything that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
The park became self-aware and murdered 200 guests.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you think Ford is capable of creating a copy of your daughter and sending her in here?
And he's also encountered Ford a couple times, you know, out in the wild.
So while it's tempting for me to just be like, ooh, he's gone way off the deep end, this is not, like, this is no crazier, really, than anything else that's happened.
Mm. He says, I'm going to destroy this whole fucking place. And I think this is like the third time he said it.
Yeah,
but
which I'm surprised by.
What do you think he is trying to do? Like, what does his version of destroying this whole place look like?
I don't know. Like, I don't know why he'd even want to at this point. Because, yeah, I don't know. I have no answer to that.
Okay.
Next question, please.
Okay. All right. So then they have their kind of fight. She tells him, you know, she's gonna fucking take everything he loves from him. You're gonna finally suffer some consequences. And then I think, do the text roll up right then, or do we cut? I think we cut.
Yeah, they're in the middle of that. And they're like, the one thing that I did like, because I agree with you actually looking at this again, with her not having enough rage, the one thing I really did like is when he laughs at her and she grabs him by the face. Because that is literally what I always want to do to people who laugh when I'm angry. I want to grab them by the face and just wrench them around. And the fact that she can throw him down because he's injured is pretty satisfying. So, yeah. And when it does, I'm going to lock you up just like we were going to do to Mom. And... and then he like throws it in her face. Oh, did Ford forget to give you that little detail? And like the fucking smugness.
Yeah.
I just,
he's so fucking sure he's got it all figured out.
Yep. And yeah, the other dudes roll up, scan them both. We don't see the scans like send back that she's human, but obviously it sends back that she's human because they don't do anything to her.
Right.
And she says, you are in your very essence a lie, which is a really specific thing to say.
Yeah.
Which is part of what makes me go, like, is he a host?
That's a really good line.
You know? And then he, like, grabs up one of the friggin' machine guns from these dudes and is like, I've underestimated you before, and just fucking shoots everybody.
Yeah.
Except her, and she's like, Dad, those are real fucking people.
Like, I will say that the look on her face when she is just like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
This is escalated, and you are way more fucked up than I even realized. Like, I am simultaneously afraid for you and of you. Like, this has changed.
Yep.
And she reaches to show him something, and he just fucking... shoots her.
Yep. And then he goes to like dig his knife into her arm for what I'm not totally sure. I guess like a transmitter just to prove to himself. And then he sees the card in her hand.
He's gloating too because he's talking to Ford and he's saying that you overreached. I never told anybody about that card. No one knew you gave it to me except you and me. Mm-hmm. Right, and that's how I know for sure that you fucked up. And then that's when he sees the card in her hand when he goes to dig in her arm.
How about that, bitch?
Yeah. And he looks like
he like does it like his expression is just so like, all right, my brain just shut off.
Yeah.
Can't cope. Not here.
That's
you know what I mean?
Accurate. And then we go back to the lab. And it's this guy being really gross for some reason. Why is he being such a dick?
To
Maeve.
I don't know.
I guess because humans are terrible in this world, so he has to be an asshole.
Yeah, maybe he like because he feels like ownership over her because she's given him this like.
I guess. I mean, he didn't want her in there in the first place, and Smallwood had to have a tantrum.
That's true.
So he felt very put out by her presence, but then he managed to get something very useful from her. But yeah, he walks in oh, we're almost done, and then that's it for you, sweetheart.
Yeah. And
then we have the scene with Ford and Maeve, and it is just everything.
Yeah, he tells her that she's the favorite host that he's ever made. That he knows that he has to let her go in a way. But she doesn't necessarily have to go out the way that he intended her to go out. Obviously, she's not going to do that. So maybe she can still come back from this somehow and be like the super strong badass that it appears she has become despite him giving her orders. Because she has just gone ahead and done her own thing.
Yeah. Like he calls her a dazzling star and that she learned so much so fast, and that he says you stayed behind for your child and I've stayed behind for mine.
Yeah.
Which is really sweet. And he gets some digs in about human race again. He's not entirely wrong.
Indeed.
I love that we get confirmation here about what was going on with her in the first season. Like there was those times where we realized that someone was messing with her code. It wasn't just her. And that she was still following a script even when she didn't think she was anymore. To find out that was really Ford behind all that.
Yeah, and it also confirms the thing, I had said, well, maybe that's just some dumb internet focus on some shit that's not even real about her leaving the park. And it turns out that he had intended her to do that. Because I had really not been sure if that was, anything real or if it was just background shit that we focused way too much on and overanalyzed.
Right.
So, because I want to do that.
So, and he says, he tried to force her to escape the park. And he said instead he should have just opened a door, which is, there's a lot of talk in this season about doors.
That's true.
So what do you think happens next for Maeve? I mean, we only have one more episode after this.
I don't know. I feel like she has to come back into herself, but it may be that she decides to bail from her own body and just take over in her daughter's body, which would be amazing because she'd be this tiny little juggernaut of knowledge and weird powers in a tiny baby package.
The last thing we see after he kisses her forehead, which I thought was very sweet, is there's a close-up on the little tablet, and it just says that her core processing has been unlocked.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Elsie and Bernard in the woods in their little weirdo dune buggy. And she goes to get some ammunition.
Right.
And then we see Bernard have his little face off.
Yeah. She's going to betray you. That's their nature. Just wow. Ford is really, he's become racist against humans. It's real reverse racism here.
I'll tell you what, when Bernard gets out of the car, he does not have a gun in his hand. And then he looks down and he has a gun in his fucking hand. We never see him get the gun.
Nope. I don't like those little time losses. That makes me very uncomfortable, and I would like it if they never happened again. Because, like, listen. I don't need to tell you. You know.
We've been with Bernard a lot this season, and there's still so much time where he's been getting up to shenanigans that we have not seen.
This is true.
Do you have, as we're going into the finale, do you have any other thoughts about what he might have been up to?
I don't. Like, all I can think is that he's been, like, going in... But everything that I think of is, like, it would take too much time. There's no way that even the little bits of time that he's losing would be enough to do... I don't know. And I'm sure, like, once it's revealed, it's going to be like, oh, duh. But at the moment, I'm just like, I have no clue. Like, because there was also the theory that there was more than one of him.
Well, we did see that closet full of Bernards, but we haven't really been back to that.
Yeah. And I don't really need to go back to that because it's also real creepy. Don't care for that either. I take it all back. So yeah, I don't like because like what I keep thinking about with him like looking down and there's a gun in his hand. Like, you ever be on such autopilot that you're in the middle of doing something and you're like, I don't even know how I got here right now. And sometimes you're doing the thing that you do every day and it's perfectly correct. And you're just like, wow, I am really like in a routine since I can do this without even realizing I'm doing it. But then there are times where you stop and you're like, hold on, wait. I know I put the milk away. Where is it? I put it away a second ago, then I needed it again, and then you realize you put the milk in the cupboard.
Sometimes your autopilot can't be trusted.
Yeah, your autopilot is just not listening or watching or anything, and you're just, I don't know, put it in a place so I don't have to see it anymore. Is really like the objective. Rather than put it in the fridge, it's like put it out of sight and you're done.
Open something and then close it and everything will be fine. It doesn't matter what.
It's like shoving all of your dirty clothes under the bed. Oh, room's clean. Thanks.
So after Bernard sees himself with the gun, he has a good and proper freak out. And throws the gun, jumps in the car, and we see him arguing with the Ford hallucination in the back seat as he is desperately trying to like go through his code and delete whatever doesn't belong there.
Right.
And I think Elsie rolls up while he's looking very distressed and sketchy. Yeah. And she sees him plugged up, and she also sees that he's cuffed himself to the car.
She's like, hey, buddy. How you feeling? Everything good? And I feel bad for her.
She picks up immediately. She's like, oh, you were going to hurt me. Like, she picks up on that right away.
Yep.
And he hands her something.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know, honestly. I think it's maybe a communication device or a sensor of some kind. But it doesn't look like anything we've ever seen them hold before.
Okay, because that shit's on the ground in the scene where Ford or Man in Black is fighting with his daughter.
Oh, it must be some kind of thing to let people know where you are because the rescue team came right to them.
Oh, okay.
And she was expecting them. Emily was expecting the QA people to show up.
Right.
So maybe that's some kind of beacon or something.
Yeah. Okay. That would make sense.
And then he just leaves her there. And she's just like, fuck you, Bernard.
She's so mad. And I'm like, girl, you don't know how lucky you just got.
I feel like, she should be a little bit more appreciative of not dying just now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she doesn't know how bad this is. I mean, he doesn't know how bad this is. I don't think either. Like, he does the thing with the rewiring. And it seems like whatever it is works because Ford goes away. But I don't trust that shit at all.
Oh, you don't?
Oh, no. You kidding me? Like,
it seems like too
Ford
easy.
is a tricky motherfucker. He's not going to just get eradicated by some guy's like 30 seconds keystrokes.
Ew.
You stop Stop.
I don't know why that happened. I'm sorry.
I hate you. You should be ashamed.
I am. I apologize, guys. I'm sorry. I'm better. We're all better than that. Oh, God. So then we go to the man in black, and he is in a sad state.
Mm-hmm.
He is a mess. And he's got a gun up to his head. And then we flash back again.
See all this shit that I figured?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. He doesn't pull the trigger. Spoiler alert. Nobody thought he was going to pull the trigger. That's fine.
Oh, that wasn't a super tense moment for you?
You think this man is going to take his own life? Give me a break. He values himself way too fucking highly for that. Also, that would be basically admitting that he lost the game, which...
That's the only thing moving him forward.
That's all he's got now. Mm-mm.
So you were never, like, worried for his life?
No. I was worried that this was going to be how the episode ended, and then they were going to be like, ooh, what's going to happen? And I'd be like, we know what's going to happen. Can we not do this? So I was very glad that that wasn't how they decided to, like, end the whole episode, because you're not fooling anyone, you know?
Yeah, I would have been a little irritated if they had decided to try to end on a cliff note of is he or is he not going to shoot himself.
Yeah.
That would have been kind of cheap.
Like, there are other characters you could do that with, and I really wouldn't know. You know? Like, for example, if they ended it with Teddy, I feel like I would be worried. I'd be like, oh my God, is he? I bet, well, maybe he won't. Well, yeah, it would make sense if he did. And it would genuinely be a question. But yeah, not with him. I'm not concerned about him at all. And I mean that in every possible sense.
So then finally, we catch back up.
RoShawn? Sorry, I hate that. I hate when people say that, but I love to say it to other people. Words with Friends says John isn't a word, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I know. I always try to play it. Like, I know it's not, but if I have the letters, I have to, like, try to play it.
Yeah, same.
So Teddy and Dolores and their sad story comes to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this pretty much at the beginning, but yeah, Teddy is finally taking some control in, like, the worst way possible.
That is true. Yeah, he's just basically realizing that he's just given up one kind of lie for another kind of lie.
Mm-hmm.
And that she is never, ever going to let him free. He can't tell her, switch me back, and she's actually going to listen to him. He's going to be in constant pain because he loves her and wants to do what she asks, and he can't, in good conscience, do what she asks.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also that, like, near constant disappointment with himself that he's going to have to, like, live with.
Right. I love the callback to she's his cornerstone. Mm-hmm. And when he talks about remembering everything, remembering what the room felt like, remembering the voices of the text when they bring him online for the first time. Yeah. The first time he sees Dolores and wondering if she was cold. It's really quite beautiful. Yeah. It's very sad. And he says that he doesn't have a choice in how he feels about her, and that he will always basically just be around to protect her and do what she wants. Mm-hmm. And he can't keep living like that. He can't imagine spending his life feeling that way about her and towards her, and having to be what she made him. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, I've never felt like that in real life. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And he says something about how that ends today, and she's like, you would never hurt me. And he's like, oh no, I wouldn't. And then she like realizes, and she's like, wait.
Right. Because there's a moment when he pulls the gun out, but it's still several minutes while he's just talking, and she's regarding him kind of, first like afraid for her own well-being, and then when she realizes that he's not going to hurt her, she tries to, put the gun down, Teddy, and like kind of like take control of the situation, but yeah, it's too late.
What's the use of surviving if we become just as bad as them?
That's the fucking
And when
question.
he says that, she looks like he slapped her in the face. Like, it's almost like there's no way that you haven't thought of that before, Dolores, but it's like nobody ever voiced it. And the fact that somebody as close to her as Teddy is like straight up being like, yeah, we're monsters, is a shock that they could view it that way and see it from like an outside perspective that way.
She has such tunnel vision, that I wonder if she has even thought of that. Like she looks like you said, when he says that to her, she looks like she's been slapped in the face. Like she's like it hadn't even, like, what? How could you even think that we're the same? Like she doesn't see it that way at all. No,
I think you're right. She doesn't, because I want to give her credit and make it like she's thought of that, but yeah, I don't think she has. You're right.
Oh man, when he finally does pull the trigger, and the way she drops. Oh.
Yeah. That was some good acting right there.
It really was. Good Lord. Wow.
This is the kind of thing that, like, that's when because, I watch a lot of, like, murder mystery shows and whatnot, and there's people, like, discovering the body, or somebody gets murdered in front of them, and they just dissolve into incoherent screams. And I have always felt, when I am at my most upset, I don't make a sound. And this moment where she just stiffly, like, collapses, like, she folds.
Yep.
And doesn't say anything, and she starts crying, but even the crying is silent at first. This just feels so much more like how I would actually react to a horrific shock. Like, you just shut down, right? Like,
the sound effect that's happening during the scene, I don't even know how to describe it. You ever have, like, in your head where it's like the noise in your brain is making this weird, like, kind of noise? It was like that. It wasn't music or anything. I don't know how they did it, but it was so loud. So you don't really hear her crying. You just hear that noise.
Yeah.
And her fucking face, when she first drops to her knees, it's like she's frozen. And then finally it starts to, like, kind of come up after 30 seconds or so. But yeah, chills. I legit got chills.
Yeah, this was definitely, like, my favorite point in this episode. Because it just felt like Teddy needed to do something to reclaim himself. And I was just feeling so irritated about him in general. You know what I mean? Just feeling like this guy is getting shoved around. I don't really, like, know who he is, and for him to for it to end this way feels like they actually tried to really be respectful of the character in a way that feels very significant.
So I have a question. At the beginning of the season, when we see all the bodies at the lake, we saw Teddy's body there.
Right.
But now we see that he actually dies in this kind of wherever they are. You know? Any ideas about how it goes from one to the other?
Well, I figure that, like, there was probably, like, a Dark Hallow and a Necromancer raised all of the dead hosts and needed them for his private army while he ascended to godhood. Probably that lake is just
That all sounds very
ectoplasm. Some Dresden Files references, guys. I really don't know. Like, I guess it's like it feels like, well, if he was already dead, then is it just a gathering of all the hosts? Like a burial ground?
Then you have to question, then the next question would be, well, who would gather them all there?
Yeah. Maybe Ghost Nation. Feels like a lot of work for that group, though. It's not that big. Or is it, I'm going to upload the personalities of some of the people from the real world into host brains and take over the real world with hosts that have customer brains and lives and passwords to their ATM accounts? Honey, I'm home.
No.
Who the fuck are you? I'm your husband. Our wedding night was like this. Like, but they're in a totally different body. Probably a way hotter body. You might be fine with it.
Yeah, well, listen, if I have to do that, I'm definitely taking an upgrade.
Well, it's not like you get a say. They just come in because they're invading.
Oh, boo.
So you might end up with, like, the sheriff or something. We can't all have Hectors. I'm sorry.
I demand a Hector.
Yeah, I don't know. Because, like, there's a lot of hosts in that, but it's not all of them.
No,
right?
No, it's not. I don't think that it's all of them. I mean, it was a good number, but we don't really see too many that we recognize, so it's hard to say.
She said coyly.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, I hope that you've been enjoying our coverage this season. Make sure to check out our sponsor at day11podcast.com or search for Day 11 Podcast on your podcatcher. They are going to be covering House of Cards coming up because the new season just dropped last night to no fanfare whatsoever from Netflix.
Yeah, how about that? They were just like, here's the thing we kind of had to do, but don't remind us we had to do it.
Really is just like such a bummer for all the actors involved. I do feel bad about that. But yeah, so if you're interested in that, they're finishing up 13 Reasons Why, because that came back also. Mm-hmm. I don't watch that, but so I didn't even realize that they were doing another season. But yeah, so day11podcast.com. And you guys can find us on Facebook.com/UnspoiledPod, Twitter at UnspoiledShow, Instagram at UnspoiledPodcast, and UnspoiledPodcast.com. I'm going to be doing the Martian for the book club for November coming up. And my co-host on that is going to be Jamie. I have not even started it yet. I will keep you posted. And yeah, I'm just like... The Phantom Tollbooth is the one for childhood favorites this coming month, and I have never read it. So this will be the first childhood favorite that I haven't read at all. Oh. And I'll be interested to see how this goes. Have you read it?
No.
I'm really curious about it because when I announced that it was on the list and that I hadn't read it, the group that I was in asking for volunteers like went nuts, and like 6 people tried to take it, but it was already spoken for. So yeah, those are going to be what's coming up, and finishing up on coverage of Daredevil next week, and after that I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break before Maggie and I dig into Discworld. Similarly, after RoShawn and I finish WestWorld, next week is the finale. We're going to take some time off until the first week in December before we restart the Harry Potter reread for patrons. So, just going to be having a little bit of downtime there because I need a bit of a break, and you're going to give it to me.
And it is the holidays. So
it's the holidays, baby.
People have things going on, time off, vacation, family, food, all kinds of stuff.
I really were just like a little infomercial there. In America, at this time of year, there's vacations, family, food, things going on. So those are our plans coming up. I have no idea how this season's going to end. I have no idea. Like, this show just keeps me off balance all the time, which is a good thing.
I am very excited for you to see this finale, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about all of the things.
Okay. You managed to say all of that without indicating whether you liked it or not, which is a smart move. Smart move, lady. All right, everybody. Well, thank you again so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. I'll check those again next week. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.